9:16 on the morning show with Jeff and Will. We are back on this fine Monday morning, and joining us as she does every Monday around this time, it's the editor-in-chief of the Rockland Business Journal, Rockland County Business Journal, that is. Good morning, Tina.
Good morning to you and to a soggy Rockland County.
That's true, yeah. It's been very rainy this morning, hopefully stopping somewhere early this afternoon. But as the rain continues to fall, hopefully the business world of Rockland County isn't as dreary.
Yes, never dreary, always exciting. Two things I want to talk about today. So, just to wind us back to where we are now, some more than 2 years ago, there was an effort for an entity from Brooklyn was going to purchase the HNA Palisades Training Center, to some still formerly known as the IBM Center, down in Palisades along Route 9W. And when that deal fell through, the town had a very grand plan to become the architect of the future of that site. And it sort of swept in, and it put itself in between the owner, HNA, and a potential purchaser/developer who was going to redevelop the site, which at the time was still functioning as a hotel and conference center. More than 2 years later, what a story it's been, but a chapter has really closed. Orangetown is out. They no longer will really have anything to say other than what comes to a planning board or zoning board about the site. And that is because the property has been taken up by a giant New York City REIT, real estate investment trust, known as SL Green. They have taken ownership of that property, that 106-acre property, a very significant piece of property in Orangetown, in Palisades. And the town of Orangetown's experiment in trying to steer the future development is over. The last gasp was they had set in motion eminent domain, which means that they were moving toward seizing or condemning the property, which has fallen into dire disrepair. And they were going to do that to once and for all facilitate the sale of the property to a developer that the town had tapped over a year ago. The name of the company is called Nevele. That company is a pair of California developers. They had presented a vision for the property that the town decided to work with. They had rejected a couple of other developers' plans. And all along, they were hoping that Nevele and HNA would make a deal. In the interim, the REIT became part of an award, part of a $185 million award against the HNA Group International Company, and that property, as I said, has been taken over by SL Green. And so sort of full circle. I don't know. How history will look at this, and what if we are to ponder, the difficulty of a town, I guess, trying to get in the middle of a private transaction. This is just a very interesting case because, a lot of time and treasure has been spent on this outside. Orangetown hired outside counsel, which has been on this, issue for a long time. Now, last thing I'll say about this is that this pair of developers may be able to purchase the property from SL Green, but SL Green has no local stake in how this property is redeveloped or what happens to it. And for SL Green, I suppose it's just a matter of selling the asset, and there's really nothing more that's involved. The town supervisor says that Nevele and SL Green are at a negotiating table, but we will have to wait and see as to how this property is ultimately sold and redeveloped. And it's been a very interesting case, I think, to watch. But the eminent domain portion of the story is over. So, moving on, unless anybody has any thoughts or questions or responses.
Well, it's not a done deal in that the SL Green could contract out to another developer or the developers that were eventually picked through the Orangetown process. That could still come about.
SL Green will sell the property to someone. That is all true. It could be the Reveal developers. It could be it could be either of the other contenders who were the finalists, one being Billy Procida, and or SL Green can sell it to anybody who shows up at their door, perhaps, and makes them the best offer. I have been told that at one point, Reveal was looking at paying about $30 million for the property, but the property has since become so degraded that I hardly think it would appraise anywhere near there. So yeah, but yes, it's really the point is that the ball is in SL Green's court, and that Orangetown has essentially really relinquished control.
I also find it interesting, and not to belabor the point too much, but I find it interesting as a contrast to what's happening in Orangetown. At least it seems like there's some movement there to a property that's been really dilapidated for many years. When you compare that to what's going on in Stony Point and in Haverstraw with the Letchworth Village property, where there's been attempts in Stony Point to get things done, and the town has turned it down by vote. And the things are going to ride there several times now, and nothing seems to be happening, or at least we're told there's interest, but there's nothing seems to be happening on the Haverstraw side.
It's going to be well. Okay, good point all around. Yes, this property in SL Green, this property in Orangetown, won't presumably remain fallow and unsold indefinitely. This is a matter of business entities duking it out and figuring out what needs to be sold and what will need to go there in the planning board. Stony Point is a whole different kettle of fish, and it's going to take some strong leadership at some point down the road, for the town, for the town supervisor or a future town supervisor to get beyond the no mentality that is seemingly every single project is met with the same response in Stony Point. Every single project. Now, I guess I can understand it in some instances, but the Letchworth Village made no sense whatsoever. You've got fallow buildings, you've got worthless buildings. I mean, the buildings that they use for public meetings there and for the senior center there are, Soviet era 1970s. They had this was the second opportunity, and certainly a much more viable opportunity for them to have had a very reasonable and logical development on that site. But you have a bunch of citizens who have created an atmosphere and a mood of no development, and the public officials have not. It's easier for them to I guess remain passive. So that is going to sit there and continue to deteriorate indefinitely on the Stony Point side, for sure.
That's unfortunate, but would be nice to see some movement there. What else?
I wanted just to call attention to a story that that I very much enjoyed doing, and it was about the new Borscht Belt Museum that is slated to come to Ellenville in 2025, and we picked up this little story not just because it's an interesting cultural moment in the life of the Hudson Valley and the Catskills, and it harkens back to all of those people who remember the Borscht Belt, who have an affiliation to that era, to that region. All of that is the cultural side of it. but the reason that we covered it in a very detailed and long story is because it too is an interesting case study in what it takes for a small group of people who formulate a nonprofit, who have a vision for something, and who want to go from that napkin idea into something that is literally solid and bricks and mortar. And that's the real story to me about what is happening here with the future development of what is going to be called the Borscht Museum on Canal Street in Ellenville. A group of people had started sitting around the table over a dozen years ago, and there were lots of iterations, and there was this sort of big, ambitious idea to try to raise $50 million. And I'm really talking to everybody out there who is involved in a nonprofit and who really can't get things humming. It took, in the case of this group, to find new leadership, to recalibrate, to rebrand, to figure out its goal. But most importantly, what it was able to do was to get itself a building. And what the president of the nonprofit explained and told me is that if you're going to have a concept like a museum and you're going to try to raise money from philanthropists and to get grants, it's really key to have a building. And so ultimately, through, I guess, the right leadership of this nonprofit and through the right networking and, with the mood being right, the nonprofit was able to purchase an old bank building that had been pretty much fallow for many, many years. And then here's the key part. Okay, so from the gentleman who is redeveloping the Nevele site, massive redevelopment project. And the Nevele, as some of you know, is very, very close.
And Tina, I got to ask you to wrap this up in the next 10 seconds.
Oh, okay. And so the bottom line is that for this developer, it was useful to him to have this point of interest in his community. And we can pick this up again next week. But it's just a very interesting story. I urge everybody to read it.
And meanwhile, you can read about it more on rcbizjournal.com. We will talk about it more next week as well. Thank you, Tina, for joining us as always. We'll talk to you again Monday.
All right. Have a great week.